She walked in expecting an apology. She walked out humiliated. For 3 years, Meghan Markle had watched Megyn Kelly tear apart her carefully constructed narrative on national television. Every contradiction exposed, every inconsistency highlighted, every claim questioned. It had driven her crazy. This blonde former Fox News anchor who refused to buy what she was selling, who kept receipts on everything, who smiled while delivering devastating fact checks. So when Meghan's team reached out requesting an interview, everyone in media knew what was coming: a showdown. The Duchess versus the critic. The princess narrative versus the prosecutorial journalist. Meghan thought she was walking into a fight she could win. She thought confronting Meghan directly would force an apology, expose bias, finally silence her loudest critic. What she didn't understand, what she couldn't have understood, was that Megyn Kelly has spent 25 years preparing for exactly this kind of ambush. She doesn't apologize for accurate reporting. She doesn't back down when celebrities get angry. And she absolutely, positively lives for the moment when someone powerful walks into her studio thinking they can intimidate her. Before we dive into this explosive confrontation, make sure you hit subscribe and smash that like button. Now, let's get into what really happened in that studio. The Megyn Kelly Show studio was deliberately simple. 2 chairs facing each other, professional lighting, minimal production that focused attention entirely on the conversation. This was a podcast built on substance, not spectacle. Megyn sat reviewing her notes, a thick folder of research beside her. She'd spent days preparing for this interview, compiling every statement Megyn had made publicly, every contradiction, every claim that could be fact-checked. She knew Megyn was coming to confront her. She was ready. "She's here," a producer announced. And she brought an entourage. Megyn smiled. Of course she did. Megyn entered with handlers, a publicist, and what appeared to be a narrative consultant. They fussed over her positioning, adjusted her lighting, repositioned the water glass 3 times. "Are we ready?" Megyn asked finally, her patience visibly thinning. Megyn settled into her chair, her expression carrying a subtle hostility that was evident before a single word was spoken. "I'm ready." "Good. Let's begin." The cameras started rolling. Megyn leaned back, her posture relaxed but her eyes sharp. "Megyn, thank you for being here. I know this wasn't an easy decision. You've been critical of my coverage in the past." Megyn's expression hardened immediately. Critical is one word for it. Another would be dishonest. Dishonest? That's a strong accusation. Which specific coverage are you referring to? All of it. You've spent years attacking me on your platform, misrepresenting my words, questioning my motives, treating me as a villain in a narrative you've constructed. Megyn nodded slowly. "I've covered you extensively, that's true, but I'd push back on attacking. I've analyzed your public statements and pointed out contradictions. That's journalism, not attack. It's character assassination disguised as journalism. Which specific statement did I make that was false? I'd like to address concrete claims." Megyn paused, seemingly caught off guard by the directness. "You said I was manipulating the media. You've done extensive media appearances while claiming you want privacy. That's a contradiction worth noting. Pointing it out isn't false, it's observation. You said I was driving a wedge between Harry and his family. Harry publicly said he chose you over them. I reported on the choice he made. The wedge is his word, not mine. You've implied our marriage is failing. I've reported on what sources have said. And speaking of marriage, how is everything? Because the rumors aren't coming from nowhere." Megyn's eyes flashed with anger. "My marriage is none of your business. You made your marriage everyone's business. The Netflix documentary, the Oprah interview, the constant joint appearances positioning your relationship as a fairy tale. When you commercialize your marriage, questions about it become fair game." Megyn leaned forward, her voice rising. "You've had an agenda against me from the beginning. Before I was even married, you were criticizing me." Megyn shrugged. "I've been skeptical, yes, because your story kept changing. The claims you made didn't always match verifiable facts. Journalists noticed those things." "What claims specifically?" "You said no one helped you adjust to royal life. Palace sources said you received extensive training. You said your wedding happened before the public ceremony. The Archbishop contradicted that. You implied racism without providing details anyone could verify. These are inconsistencies, Megyn. I didn't create them. I reported on them. You chose to report on them in the most negative light possible. I reported on them accurately. If accuracy feels negative to you, That's not my problem. It's yours. Megyn's face flushed. You're not a journalist. You're a commentator with an agenda. I'm someone who spent 25 years in media, who's held positions at the top networks in the country, who's interviewed presidents and world leaders. My credentials aren't in question. What's in question is why you can't answer basic questions about your own statements without getting defensive. I'm not defensive. You've been defensive since you walked in. Before I asked a single question, you accused me of dishonesty. That's not openness. That's warfare. And if you came here for a fight, I'm happy to oblige. But let's at least be honest about what's happening. Megyn shifted topics, her approach methodical. Let's talk about something current. The Met Gala happened recently. You weren't invited. What happened? Megyn's composure cracked slightly, a flash of something vulnerable before she recovered. Guest lists change from year to year. But you've been to major fashion events before. You're on magazine covers. Not being invited to the biggest fashion event of the year seems significant. I don't speculate about Anna Wintour's decisions. Megyn smiled. You speculate extensively about the palace's decisions. Why is Anna Wintour different? Because one involves institutional racism and cruelty. The other is a party. Both are powerful institutions making choices about your inclusion. You've built your entire public narrative around analyzing institutional exclusion. Why is this particular exclusion off limits? Because it's not important. You seem affected by it. Your expression changed when I mentioned it. I'm not affected. You are. And that's understandable. Exclusion hurts, regardless of the source. But I'm curious why you're willing to discuss one form of rejection for years and not another. Megyn's voice sharpened. Because they're completely different situations, are they? Both suggest that maybe the embrace you expected hasn't materialized. The Met Gala, the Netflix cancellations, the Spotify situation, there's a pattern of doors closing. At what point do you acknowledge that? There is no pattern. There's observable evidence. I'm asking you to explain it. Megyn pressed forward. Speaking of Netflix, several projects were canceled recently. The animated series, documentary concepts. What happened? Megyn's expression hardened. Projects evolve. That's the entertainment industry. Evolve is generous. The trades used canceled. That's different from evolution. That's rejection. The trades sensationalize everything. They report facts. The fact is you signed a $100 million deal and the output has been limited. People are curious what happened to the rest of that investment. I don't discuss private business matters. You discussed your family's financial arrangements extensively. You revealed what Charles paid you, complained about being cut off. Why are Netflix finances off limits when family finances weren't? Megyn had no immediate answer. Megyn continued. It seems like you're selective about what's private. Family matters are public when they make you look sympathetic. Business matters are private when they might not. That's not principle. That's strategy. You're twisting everything. I'm pointing out inconsistencies. That's what I do. And you have a lot of them. Megyn took a sip of water, her expression thoughtful. Let's talk about Harry. How is he? The walls went up instantly. Megyn's entire demeanor shifted. I prefer not to discuss my husband. Megyn's eyebrows rose. You prefer not to discuss the person who's been central to your entire public narrative? The Netflix documentary was about your relationship. The Oprah interview featured him prominently. Your brand is Harry and Megyn. How can we discuss your life without discussing him? By focusing on me. But you're not a solo act. Everything you've done since leaving the UK has been joint. Making him off limits removes most of your public existence. Megyn's jaw flexed. There are rumors I want to address. Which rumors? The divorce rumors. The separation speculation. They're completely false. Malicious lies designed to destroy what we've built. Megyn nodded slowly. I didn't ask about divorce. I asked how he was doing. Why did your mind go there? Megyn stiffened. Because that's what people like you keep implying. I haven't implied anything today. I asked a simple question. You heard divorce. That interpretation came from you, not me. Because I know the narrative you're pushing, I'm not pushing any narrative. I'm observing your reactions. When someone asks about your husband, and you immediately defend against divorce accusations no one made, it suggests divorce is on your mind more than you're admitting. That's ridiculous. It's observation. Your first association when I mentioned Harry was divorce defense. That tells me something. Megyn's face reddened. It tells you that I'm tired of tabloid speculation. I'm not a tabloid. I'm sitting right here, asking how your husband is doing. The simplest question imaginable. and you've turned it into a divorce denial. That's fascinating. Megyn stood up slightly, then sat back down, a false start that betrayed her agitation. You're doing exactly what you've always done, twisting everything to make me look bad. Megyn's expression didn't change. What have I twisted? Quote me something I've said today that was inaccurate. Your whole approach isn't an answer. Give me a specific statement I've made that was false or unfair. Megyn struggled to respond. The implication that my marriage is failing. I asked how Harry was doing. You supplied the rest. The implications are yours, not mine. The suggestion that I'm responsible for the Netflix cancellations. I asked what happened with the projects. I didn't assign blame. I asked for explanation. You refused to provide one. Your tone. My tone is direct. If direct feels like attack, that's about your comfort level with scrutiny, not about my conduct. Megyn's voice rose. You've been attacking me for years. This interview is just a continuation of that campaign. I've been covering you for years. There's a difference. Covering means reporting on public statements and actions. Attacking would mean making things up. Everything I've reported has been based on things you've said or done. The contradictions I've pointed out are real contradictions. If that feels like attack, maybe examine the contradictions instead of blaming me for noticing them. Megyn leaned forward, her expression serious. Megyn, let me be direct with you. You came here wanting to confront me about my coverage. You expected me to back down, apologize, admit I'd been unfair. But I'm not going to do that. Because I haven't been unfair. I've been accurate, and accuracy isn't something I apologize for. Your accuracy is selective. My accuracy is documented. Every claim I've made is sourced. Every contradiction I've noted is verifiable. If you can show me something I've gotten wrong, I'll correct it. That's what journalists do. But you haven't shown me anything. You've just expressed displeasure that I report on you at all. Because your reporting has an agenda, my agenda is truth. Your discomfort with my coverage doesn't make my coverage false. It makes it uncomfortable for you. Those aren't the same thing. Megyn grabbed her water, took a long drink, then set it down forcefully. This was a mistake. Coming here was a mistake. Probably. But not for the reasons you think. What's that supposed to mean? You came here to put me in my place. To confront the critic and make her back down. But I don't back down from accurate reporting. I never have. So instead of the apology you expected, you got more questions you can't answer. That's not my fault. That's the consequence of building a public narrative that doesn't hold up to scrutiny. Megyn stood up fully, her composure finally breaking. I don't have to sit here and be lectured by someone who's made a career out of tearing people down. Megyn remained seated, looking up at her with an expression mixing amusement with something like pity. I've made a career out of asking questions. If questions feel like being torn down, that says something about the stability of what you've built. You've never given me a fair chance. I've given you every opportunity to explain yourself today, to clarify contradictions, to share your perspective. You've treated every opportunity as an attack. That's not my unfairness. That's your defensiveness. Because you're hostile, I've been direct. Hostility would involve insults, false accusations, unfair framing. I've done none of those things. I've asked questions and waited for answers. You haven't liked the questions. That's different from hostility. Megyn grabbed her purse, her movements sharp with controlled fury. I'm leaving. That's your right. But before you go, I want to say something. Megyn paused, perhaps curious despite her anger. Megyn's voice was calm but firm. You came here to settle a score, to make me admit I'd been wrong about you. But I haven't been wrong. The contradictions in your story are real. The inconsistencies in your claims are documented. The patterns of behavior I've reported on are observable to anyone paying attention. Your interpretation is based on evidence, which you've never actually disputed. You've expressed displeasure. You've accused me of agenda. You've called my coverage unfair. But you've never pointed to a specific false statement and proven it wrong. Because you can't. Because what I've reported is accurate. Megyn stared at Megyn, her face contorted with barely suppressed rage. You'll regret this. People have been telling me that for 25 years. Still waiting. This will follow you. It will follow both of us. The footage will show exactly what happened. A journalist asking questions and a guest treating them as attacks. My audience will see it. So will yours. Let them decide who came off better. Megyn moved toward the exit, then turned back for one final confrontation. You know what your problem is, Megyn? You've built your entire identity on being controversial. on attacking people, on tearing down anyone more successful than you. Megyn smiled slightly. More successful? By what measure? You had a small acting career, married a prince, left royal life, and are now watching your media empire crumble while denying it's crumbling. I've had a 25-year career at the top of my industry, survived multiple attempts to cancel me, and built an independent platform with millions of loyal viewers. I'm not sure more successful is the flex you think it is. I've made a global impact. You've made global noise. Impact requires actual change. Name one thing that's different because of your foundation work. One policy changed. One system reformed. One measurable outcome. Megyn's mouth opened and closed. That's what I thought, Megyn said quietly. You talk about impact. You don't demonstrate it. That's been my whole critique. Not that you're evil. Not that you're stupid. Just that there's a gap between your claims and your evidence. And pointing out that gap isn't attack, it's accountability. Megyn's voice dropped to something cold. We're done here. We've been done since you decided to be defensive instead of honest. But sure. Goodbye, Megyn. Megyn turned and walked out. The door closed behind her with a decisive click. Megyn sat alone in the studio for a moment, then turned to face the camera. Well, that was predictable. She shrugged. I knew she was coming to confront me. I knew she expected me to apologize for my coverage. What I didn't know was whether she'd have any actual arguments. Turns out, she didn't. She leaned back in her chair. Here's the thing about my coverage of Meghan Markle. Every single claim I've made is documented. Every contradiction I've pointed out is based on her own public statements. When I say her story keeps changing, I can cite the specific instances. When I note that her claims don't always match facts, I can show the receipts. Megyn looked directly into the camera. What she wanted was for me to apologize for accurate reporting, to admit I'd been unfair. But I haven't been unfair. I've been thorough, and thoroughness feels like attack when you're not used to scrutiny. She paused. The really telling thing is what she couldn't do. She couldn't point to a single false statement I've made. Not one. She expressed displeasure. She accused me of agenda. But she never actually disputed the facts. Because she can't. The facts are the facts. Megyn smiled slightly. She's welcome back anytime she wants to actually address the substance instead of attacking the messenger. But I suspect that won't happen, because the substance isn't on her side. The interview lasted 28 minutes before Megyn walked out. Its impact would last considerably longer. Megyn Kelly continued doing what she'd always done, asking the questions that powerful people didn't want to answer, pointing out the contradictions that others were too polite to mention, and refusing to apologize for accurate reporting. Meghan Markle returned to Montecito, to her foundation work, to her ongoing media strategy. But the confrontation she'd sought had backfired spectacularly. Instead of putting Megyn in her place, she'd confirmed every critique Megyn had ever made: defensive, unable to handle scrutiny, hostile to anyone who didn't accept her narrative without question. Some confrontations you win by showing up. Others you lose by revealing too much. And some critics, when you finally face them, turn out to have been right all along, not because they're mean, but because they've been paying attention. Megyn had been paying attention for years. Megyn had just proven why. What do you think? Was Megyn too direct, or did Megyn deserve every question? Who would you want to see on Megyn's show next? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like this video to help it reach more people. Subscribe to our channel for more explosive celebrity moments.